Hi, welcome everybody to the Amplify Speakers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sun, and today I'm very blessed to have Jay Kiew with me. For those that aren't aware of Jay yet, you will want to be as soon as it's done. Jay is one of the most sought-after keynote speakers in the world. He's the author of Change Fluency, which is 9 principles to navigate uncertainty and drive innovation. He's worked with some of the largest companies in the world, and some people would even probably call Jay a serial entrepreneur. I'm getting ready to dive into this, but I think we're going to talk everything from innovation to change, AI, people, and everything in between. So really lucky to have Jay here today.
Chris, what's going on? Thankful to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to start off and just kind of go a little bit background. You have done so much amazing things in your career, and I think people, it's helpful to see that line, that story of like all those different things you have accomplished and done.
Yeah, a little bit of background. I was born in Singapore, out of all places, a little micro island just south of Malaysia. And back in the 80s, my aunt's babysitting me. And she's like, "Oh, Jay's a pretty cute baby." So she starts taking pictures, with one of those old school flash cameras. Flash, flash, flash. And, as she gets these photos developed, my family notices something strange. In every single photo where flash was used, there's a little red dot on top of my left eye. It's cancer. 7 tumors. My ophthalmologist rushes in to operate. Before I turned 1 year old, I was left half blind, a cancer survivor with a prosthetic glass eye. And by the way, I don't share this for pity at all, but I actually share this because, at what age do we experience our first disruption? Change has been a constant, in my life, much as I imagine it has been in yours. And that's been a through line for me. Change. As you're like, yeah, me too. And it's so fascinating. I'm weird. I love change so much. I actually decided to make a career out of it. I helped organizations navigate change by expanding cross-border, so moving from the States into different countries like Canada and Australia and China. For a little bit, ended up asking, how do people make those decisions in the first place? So became a consultant with Deloitte, where I helped drive a lot of organization transformation there, and then ended up in a pretty similar field to you. So I was in healthcare, on the digital health strategy side of things. And so we were driving impact and change on that side, before eventually jumping into entrepreneurship, or stumbling into entrepreneurship, and for the past 6 years have been scaling a few companies for funsies.
Yeah, I love that. Man, there's a lot. I kind of want to dive back, but first, I think explaining maybe a little bit of, right now, those companies that you're working on building.
Oh,
Tell us
yeah. So one's the Change Fluency Co. I'm rocking the vest right now. We're helping organizations apply innovation, which is actually like the biggest challenge all organizations have in 2025 and 2026. Right? There's all this AI stuff, and yet the stats are astounding. 95% of orgs are failing to realize ROI. 74% of orgs are failing to scale value. McKinsey just released another report. They're all the same, right? They're all along the same theme, that we have the latest technology. We haven't been able to capture the value in it.
Yeah.
Which leads us to this notion that like we actually don't have a technology problem, because we have the latest technology at our fingertips. We actually have a change problem. But what if we reframe that? What if we reframe that to a change opportunity? So that's what the CFC, the Change Fluency Co. does.
Yeah, what a great need, to say the least, in that space. I was actually talking to somebody today about this. I just was at a conference last week, and we have an AI company. I'm very proud that I get to represent, and there's probably 90 vendors, and I'd say the majority of the ones that were in the strategic innovation lab or that were there have some latest and greatest technology. He said, well, the scariest stat is, you know, probably 9 out of 10 of these companies in 3 to 5 years won't be around.
Mm,
And the failure rate for AI technologies is way worse than any restaurant investment. And I don't know, last time people were like, throw your money into restaurants. It's the best thing you should be throwing your money into. I'm not saying don't, but everyone's going, we should be doing this and bringing this in. But you start looking at it, it really doesn't make any financial sense. Yeah,
yep.
from the statistics.
Yep. And so how do we call BS on it, right? How do we say, hey, don't hire me to help you deploy AI? That feels like the wrong approach.
Hmm.
Instead, why don't we
Yeah,
just look at your processes, right? What's going on there before we even bring up AI in the first place?
I completely agree. Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts when you go look at it. How many times do you go, it's maybe there's necessary for change to get more out of the technology, or hey, this technology is great and what it's able to do is great. Now, is it solving a problem, enough of a problem that quantifies the lift it takes to bring it in or to use it or to buy it? Or are they just going, hey, I figured out a way I can make this do this? Was that really something people were asking for in the first place?
Right. There's a lot of hype right now. Chris, you probably have seen that, right? Where a lot of executives are saying, like, let's buy all the Copilot licenses and the Anthropic licenses. Let's do it. Let's just give them what they need. And then 6 months later, 9 months later, they're asking, well, wait a minute. So what'd you do? What was the time saved? Right? What was the value that you created? And I think like executives are so sharp nowadays that they're like, well, wait a minute. Let's start to rethink that this year in 2026. If we're making an investment, show me the outcome. Don't show me the money spent.
Yeah, absolutely. I would hope that is what they're looking at.
Yeah, yeah. I was with World Bank just a few weeks ago, and it's interesting. Um, AI is just like one of the changes this year. We live in such a complex and uncertain world, more so than ever before, that I think the skill set that leaders are actually drawn towards is if change doesn't stop coming, how do I stop trying to manage it? Because like we're grasping for control. And instead, how do we start to just sit in the changes and be totally comfortable and fluent and adaptive with it? And so, yeah, that's where I geek out on. It's this notion of change fluency, change as a language. How do we learn to speak it better instead of trying to control it?
Well, I'm guessing you see this, but my experience is with change, there's people that geek out over it and love it like you, but I would say that more often than not, people are really scared of change. I don't even know if scared is right. They're comfortable doing things the way they are used to doing things. I think it might even be more of a comfort situation than anything.
Mhm.
So when you go in, what do you do you got some people that are comfortable and we're doing it this way. Why are we gonna change it?
Yeah. Yeah, what we found was in working with about 50,000 leaders is that our change mindset, like how we react to change, it actually all boils down to just two things: our change interpretation and our change response. Interpretation is, do I see change as a threat or as an opportunity? Response is, am I frozen and stuck, or am I proactive and adaptive? And to your point, depending on how I fall on like the 2x2 that you can kind of start seeing shape up, I'm either going to be like a defender where I'm like, well, this change is hitting me, but I like how things are. I built this team. I built this product. What do you mean you're going to try to change it? I'm going to be an observer if I think that change might be a good thing, but I just want to wait and see. Right? Like, oh, let's see how AI plays out. Let's see how the tariffs play out. Let's see how the war plays out, Maybe something good will come out of this. And then you have on the other side people who like self-sabotage, who are proactively working against change because they see it as a threat. And then people who are change fluent, who are seeing change as an opportunity and being proactive about it. So those are kind of like the four archetypes that we usually see. And the truth is that we ping pong across all four depending on how we feel that day.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you see people, move a path or go a little all over?
We all intuitively know how to be change fluent, like when we're change fluent, right? Like, oh, there's a new thing that just came out. Maybe I'll go try it. Right? That's what, like, that feels natural to us. The challenge that we have is not only in identifying where we are in that moment. And yeah, people generally tend to defend or self-sabotage. The challenge and the invitation that most of us have as leaders is how do we reinforce or practice the habits that nudge us back into being change fluent? So, during my keynote, usually we share about how it's like, how do we discover what's possible? How do we design the future? And then how do we differentiate from the standard?
Oh, those are some great advice. If I wouldn't mind just hearing a little bit more, if you're going to dive into one of those that you think makes the biggest difference, what would it be?
Combination. I think all three are important equally, but, discover what's possible is this practice of strategic foresight, which futurists and strategists do all the time. But I actually think all of us should be doing that. When we're doom scrolling on Instagram, you're there at 10 p.m. at night, right? You just put the kids down. You're like, oh man, there's a lot of stuff on Insta. And then you spot something. You're like, oh, that's a cool AI use case. There is this moment where you immediately continue to swipe through. Or being change fluent might be like, oh, well, wait a minute. Let me just send that to myself to hit my inbox because I'm scanning the market to discover what's possible. And let me try to, like, tomorrow when I'm at my desk, interpret what that means for me and my org today.
Yes.
So that's discovering what's possible.
So you've been doing a lot yourself with AI and agentic AI. Do you care to share a little bit of like what you've been working on recently?
Oh my gosh, I haven't slept. I feel like I haven't slept in like the last 3 months because the evolution in the technology has just been so wild and rampant. It feels like a full-time job. But one of the biggest things is shifting from, if imagine a pendulum where you have thought on one side and execution on the other. As employees, as team members, as workers, most of us spend a lot of time on execution, right? You go through your inbox, you hop on calls, you do the thing. And I guess I'm just curious how much time we spend on the thinking and the reflection portion. So let's say it was like 90-10. What we've been doing with AI agents is actually asking ourselves, how do we spend most of our time in the thought process and the reflection process? 90%. So that AI agents can take on more of the execution. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
And it hurts my brain every single day that I do it because it's so much fun. Like for marketing, for instance, we've been wrestling with how do we write quality thought pieces that don't show up like AI slop.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do what everyone's doing and you ask Claude or ChatGPT to copy XYZ, you're going to get the exact same output.
Yes.
So one of the things that we've been playing around with is how do we actually just write stories? And the post that's it. It's just the story and then it cuts off maybe like a paragraph or two in and it's like, you want to keep reading? Come hop on our website. And the website's not a pitch. It's a continuation of the story. And we've been taking, right? And so we've been taking a lot of iteration after iteration after iteration. We've now created a knowledge base that now an AI agent can review that as good, what great looks like from our point of view. and it starts to take ideas from us, writes it, creates the subject line, creates the, preview and the thumbnail, and then passes it back to us to review and iterate on that. It gets us 80% of the way there, and then we refine to the 100%. Thanks for letting me ramble about this, by the way. It's fun. It's having a marketer without a marketer.
Incredible. And I don't know any. I mean, gosh, I hear it all the time. I think for my own personal self, man, I'd love to have an assistant. I'd love to have somebody that can help me do this. I know I want to do this, or I could do this. How do I get it to do that? How do you take the time? Because just like anything, even if you hire somebody, you still have to train them. You got to teach them, and it's a similar idea. How close can you get it if you show it? It's interesting because from a writing perspective, now it's coding, but from a writing perspective, marketing perspective, AI was one that really goes, hey, this could change the game. This could put some people worried. I still think in some ways, yes, it will. For those that are making feature benefit type content, this is what this does. But the more that keeps getting put out in ABC and XYZ over and over again, and it's the same thing regurgitated. Now we're training people to make that many more blogs and that much more pieces and just output that much more every single day. I think it's going to be the stories, the authentic, the real is going to win more than it probably has the last year or two in that space, because people are just, like you said, you can pick it out. You can usually probably pick it out from a mile away. I'm like, you didn't even put that together.
You just copied and pasted that. What is that? Yeah. It's this notion that stories stir souls, but stats just track, they just keep track of facts. Right. And so how do we write stories that actually stir our soul, as opposed to like regurgitation of facts and numbers and data? We can get that anywhere now, right? So
you can. And I don't know if that's the human side of us that goes, I mean, stats are important. You put the data in front and you're learning from it. But you could take the same information and throw a story in there, and all of a sudden the light bulb or aha goes off, and you decide to do something with it.
Totally. Yeah. Rich, my business partner, about a week ago, he's sitting, it's 11 p.m. at night in front of his computer, and he's banging his head against the screen, because metaphorically, not literally, because he realized that an N8N, which is an AI agent workflow builder, we spent 4 weeks building this process in N8N to go search for leads and that kind of thing. And he was so upset and frustrated because in that moment at 11 p.m., he realized that Claude Cowork replaced that entire workflow without doing anything. And he was like, all of this work feels like a waste. And I'm like, well, no, actually, it was the map. All of the work that we spent process mapping and figuring out every single step that you do on a daily basis, because we're able to articulate that to Claude now, and we did it with N8N, we have the clarity of what we can automate with AI.
Yeah, great point.
And so, anyway, quick example there, but
great example. And it goes to show the importance of like understanding and learning it. I think it's only as good as what we feed the technology and how we set it up. It's absolutely remarkable, though, what every new iteration and thing comes out, and you go look, like you said, you go scrolling on some. Did someone actually did that with that? And like that, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So it's like how, right? Like how can we do that for ourselves? How can we get the value that they're getting? Yeah. What have you been playing around with lately?
So I haven't got to the point where like I'm building AI agents. I want to. The more I've talked the last week or two, I go, I probably should start learning and playing around with it. From that, So I use a lot of basic, I would say, AI functions across a wide variety, and I've tried different ones that I believe do certain things better than others. But like, I think we talked about a little bit earlier, a represented company that is built on its own natural language model. It was built, yeah, many years ago. So like, I mean, we're talking over 10 years ago. So AI wasn't even really being talked about, but Ed was working at JP Morgan. They had a way more people applying for finance roles than any human could like go through. So imagine 1,000 applicants and you're just kind of going like, well, who's the best? Like, where do we
Yeah.
start with this stack? And so he started building models to go, well, what would you do if you had the time? What if you did, why would you say this one's better than that one or that one's better than this one? And started building models around that idea.
Mm.
He ran into our owner, Steven, and the more who'd been in staffing and search, and built quite a company and really understood that side and went, hey, what you're building here, we might have a better and even bigger use case that we could really expand on this. So pretty remarkable that idea is, spawned into, if we had all the data, let's say on the US and even the globe, and we had the market, so we have 200 million people in this database that we've collected from a variety out there, and you put it all together, can you search? Can this thing say,
Mm.
if there's 1,000 people with this type of specialty, this is where it goes? And we took it a step farther because you want the human aspect in that and going, okay, even if you did that, we can take out the bias. You don't see their names. You can't see their photos. You don't know if it's a guy or girl, none of that, it exists. You just looked at what they've done.
Mm.
And then you decided from there, it actually learns and can say, hey, you don't have time to reach out to these people. Tell me how you would reach out in your language. And we're going to start emailing, texting them, and we're going to start asking them if they'd be interested in this job. And we're going to keep behind the scenes looking for people where you can source an extra 5 to 100 people a day, depending on what you're looking for. We're going to keep reaching out for you and doing the job that, you don't have the time to do. And so, it's always fine tuning. You're always finding ways to take that, and help improve it, enhance it. But it's been pretty remarkable coming from our space, or, one of the biggest things people say is trying to find good people and good talent, or I don't have the time to go recruit. I'm just waiting for people to apply. Well, how do we solve that problem? How do we just make sure that people are even aware your job exists?
Yeah. And what an innovative approach to it too. It's not saying, oh, let us augment you by, helping you post. You're actually proactively looking for the best qualified candidates that might not even be looking for a job right now.
Bingo.
It's
And
beautiful.
yeah, because you think of the jobs you're filling, it's probably because somebody applied more often than not. So it's all the ones that people are struggling for that you have to go headhunt really for. But I think, my experience with adoption of technology, if you start doing too much automation, people go, that's not what I would have said, or I don't want you to send that out. I would
Mm.
have said that, and it's coming from my email. You're putting my name on it. And so we kind of took, I tell people, we're not trying to build these robots like Ultron from Marvel that are going to take things over. But what if we put Iron Man suits on all of our employees? Let's put that technology, and you're still in control. It's your heart, it's your brain, it's your voice. What if we gave you some technology that now you can do way more faster and way more than you're able to do before, but you are fully controlling every bit and piece of that? So that's been fun to keep the human aspect that's so important in it, and but using the technology to enhance the human side.
I love that. I think that's so aptly describing what the agentic leader is going to be this year, right? How do we have a leader who is so human centered and is the human driving and powering their productivity with the tools that they have at their disposal?
Yeah, it'll be interesting how much that helps play a part. I would think it would.
Mm.
It's also hard to say. Yeah, I think it's one of those, like, that's where you get into like the worry summer model talks that we could talk about, like, what if they're not? And what if this person, like, what if somebody with this view really gets the building away and creates something that's on the flip side of that? So,
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? Like as I wrestle with how many asks are coming in, a lot of people bring up this notion of like, what can I trust? And how do we do it in an ethical and good or responsible way? And I feel like if you're building it yourself and you have the best of intentions, that's really what we should be focusing on, you know? How do we bring our best to life by leveraging the latest in technology? It feels like the most important question of our decade, you know, because I think now more than ever, we have this huge opportunity as individuals to bring our best works to life, to build, you know. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, completely. You know, there's scenarios, there's people that have great ideas and maybe never have the means or the ability to really see those ideas to what they are capable of becoming.
Yeah.
And so, if done right, if learned right, and used right, you know, the capabilities are, you know, for some of those things and inventions and ideas to maybe see more of their maximum potential or even see their potential and get off the ground, I think is very high. Then the on the flip side, the worry is, what if we're just enhancing the noise that much more? If
Hmm.
you ask people the last, let's just say since the pandemic, since 2020, how much more noise, outreach, things are getting put in front of us from marketing, social media, emails, text, spam, calls, you name it. How much more noise do you get today than 6 years ago? And what's the next year or two going to look like with with what we are building? Are
I'm
we
gonna go
just
hide in a rock in a hole when all the
yeah.
texts and stuff.
So, you know, there's that on the flip side. Are we going to put so much noise out there
Hmm.
um, with AI? And is so much of this going to look so similar and sound similar? And you have AI voice calling you, but it sounds like people. At what point could it have the exact like opposite effect on society, where people are just like you said, I want to go find the rock. I need to get
Yep.
away.
Yep. I think now more than ever, it's our, you know, I feel a duty to be the pragmatic optimist. This view that, you know, realistically, maybe stuff's going to hit the fan, right? And it's going to be terrible. But just choosing to see optimistically what the future might hold, that's important to me. About a week ago, I was having ice cream with my cousin and her kids. And, you know, she's a mom. She has two kids. One's high school and one's elementary. So she's been, for the last 7 years, been on PAC, like parental advisory committees and that kind of thing. And she comes to me and she's, you know, she's holding her strawberry ice cream. And she says, "Hey, I know you post a lot about AI. Can I run something by you?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, sure. Like, hit me. Well, what is it?" And she says, "You know, for the last 7 years, I've kind of moved away from being a parent on the PAC committee because now one of the biggest problems I wrestled with was our hot lunch program." I'm like, what do you mean?" She's like, "It's a terrible, terrible app that we pay for. You can't customize your meals. You never know when things are going to get notified." She's like, what would it look like if I try to make a hot lunch app now that's just better? Like I would design it with today's principles, with the same principles that we have on Uber Eats and, you know, all the other Skip the Dishes and all of those apps. What would that look like now? Like knowing what you know about AI, is it possible for me to build that? And I was like, should we just do it in the next week and see what happens? It can process payments. We'll link up to APIs that can process payments, and we'll have databases that can store CRM, and it should be pretty easy. And less than a week later, we had something that was 10 times better than the crappy hot lunch program app that was built in 2000. That's value though, because now she's like, "Oh, I could sell this to my school, but not just my school, every other school district. This would be a slam dunk. You would make revenue on transactions per hot lunch offered to kids, and it would be cheaper than what they're currently paying for, and it would be way better." This is the kind of value I think that like what glimpses of vibe coding last year have led to.
Yes.
How do we create what we just have always imagined?
That's, I love that story. Because how many people are sitting with those things that they've seen or known, and once again, it's just what's been in place or it's always been there. And to go, wow, we probably could do this better. And doing this better isn't just to do it better because it's like, hey, this is a good business use case, but also like, this is actually going to make an impact as
Hmm.
well for
Yeah.
people.
I'm looking forward to going to her school now, and when my kids get to elementary school age, and just having the ability to text my orders in for my daughter, so I don't have to make her lunch anymore. That would be the goal.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that it's just amazing what you can do with it and what I've seen. I don't know if you've seen, you watched any high school or junior high, and I think it's all the way down to elementary now, but there's these sports programs, Huddle being one of them I know of, but there's a lot of these programs out there that like are watching the sporting games.
Mm,
So my son had his basketball banquet, and we have video of every single game. And I'm like just sitting there like it's so smart that it knows where it should be like leading into, and then you're getting stats and all this information. I'm like, that is absolutely remarkable. Like
mm,
to have that. I'm like, and you caught that because it was being done. And I get it's being used across like all functions and areas. But I just go like that, you never had anything even somewhat close to that in the past.
right. And for your
Someone's
son to
like,
get coached
yeah,
by those insights, like that's powerful.
it's pretty amazing to say the least, to watch. And once again, to catch other moments. What was cool was, the coach actually talked about of all the plays and whatnot, and in his years of coaching, he was actually more proud as he watched at the end of the game, a game they were losing and weren't going to probably come back to, but at the very end, as the buzzer goes, and watch a kid dive for an out of bound, a loose ball on the ground, like give it all into the bleacher, like into the chairs, not stopping,
Yeah.
regardless of the score and what it set up there, and then to watch that it caught then the team,
Mm,
rushing over to the kid who just crashed into that and helping him up and what kind of comes. So it was also cool. Like no one would have probably had that. No one's watching the last minute of a losing game probably and would have had that, but is neat for that just as much as the stats than to see the human aspect of like, are we building great people?
yeah. Yeah. The moments of, team support and camaraderie and yeah. Wow.
So, I want to feel like we went all over the board, but one of the things I like to know, you're so busy with your business, everything you're doing, helping others. You also have family. What's that look like? How are you balancing your personal and professional life?
I love that we talked about the zoo prior to hitting record because that's actually going to come in right in this moment now. I try to bring them along. There's a rapper that I really like. His name's Toby Nigwe. He's out of Texas. And a few years ago, I saw a clip online of him just consistently bringing his family onto stage. And he does in his songs, he talks about how he doesn't show up if they're not allowed in. And for the longest time, we've been trying to balance work and life as if it's a problem that we can actually solve. But the truth is that it's a polarity for us to manage. It's work and life, work and family. And so what I've been trying to do is, I do about 50 events a year. My family does not come with me to all of them, just to clarify that. But last year, I had a week in Denver and we hit up the zoo and I brought my family along where I did the event on like the one day and then had a working vacation as a result of that. So I think that's how we balance like the high burn that is keeping me busy with moments that really matter. Another quick aside, about a month ago, I did my first event internationally in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And, I mentioned at the start of this recording, I'm Singaporean, which is right next door. So I thought to myself, what better time to sacrifice and say no to the rest of the events in a 2-week radius, say yes to that one event, and bring my kids and my daughters to go meet their aunts and their uncles and their cousins for the first time ever. It's things like that where it's like, how do I intentionally make trade-offs to say, you know what, I'm not going to do any other work for 2 weeks, and I'm going to make the most of this opportunity that is in front of me.
Yeah, that's way better use of your time than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, in what that opportunity you're able to give your family is priceless. It's a memory that they will always remember. And whatever day to day they did back home, likely, who knows, maybe they do something pretty memorable, but likely probably not. But you're creating these memories of a lifetime by bringing them along, and just I love that.
Yeah, there's this notion of how do we define what's good enough, regardless of what our profession is, right? When it comes to success, what is good enough, and let's not try to chase more than that, because I can be so like I have so many friends who do like 80, 90, 100 events a year, and I think to myself like I would hate that, right? Like give me my 50 and like let me drive impact there, and show up and be present, and then for the rest of the time, let me prioritize playgrounds where I can go swing on monkey bars with my daughters and step through mud. And, it's the quiet things that matter on that front for me.
Yeah. Well, I think, you've got it figured out right there. Because I don't know about you, but what your thought is on this, but I don't want my professional bio and any part of it on my tombstone. That's for sure. I do not want any little bit of it because it
Yeah,
doesn't matter, right? So people can we can do all the work we want to add another like this and that and an achievement or whatever, and not something. But when the time comes, I really hope husband and father, or grandparent, and those titles. That's really at the end of the day what really matters. Those are the ones that, hopefully generationally, will remember and we make the biggest impact on. So,
totally. The memories where we're showing up in the moments.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I unfortunately have to wrap this up, which is too bad because I could probably sit here and we could just go back and forth all day. With that, as I thank you, I just want all the listeners to know I'm going to take and put a link for Jay's website along with his page on Amplify Speakers. But I also will put a link as well for Change Fluency. So if you haven't, I highly recommend you click on that link. You get yourself a copy of that, and they'll be all in the description for every episode. So please check it out. And thank you so much, Jay, for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.